Welcome to Alternatively Speaking, the podcast that explores unconventional perspectives on today's most pressing issues. I'm your co-host, Phil Carlson, along with my co-host, Ann Donohoe. And thus far, we've talked a lot about the science of longevity, which has been fascinating, but in this episode, we're focusing on the money and technology behind it. Today, we're thrilled to have with us Petr Sramek, a visionary in the field of longevity tech. Petr is the co-founder, chairman, and managing general partner of Longevitytech.fund. With more than 33 years of experience as a serial tech entrepreneur, Petr firmly believes in the power of science and technology to elevate humanity to new heights. Petr's resume includes being a former entrepreneur and resident at Singularity University and co-founder of the Longevityforum.eu. He currently serves on the boards of several cutting-edge companies in the longevity sector, including Animal Biosciences in the US and AgeCurve and IMYM in the UK. But Petr's influence extends far beyond his official roles. He's dedicated to building the scientific, financial, and business infrastructure needed to accelerate the adoption of technologies that improve our health span. As a mentor at the Foresight Institute and On Deck Longevity Biotech, Petr guides innovative teams in the longevity sector, helping them grow into globally ambitious companies. In today's episode, Petr will share his journey from tech entrepreneurship to launching a Longevitytech.fund. He'll offer insights on evaluating companies for investment, raising funds for early-stage startups, and the practical applications of longevity research, from personalized health approaches to gene therapies. Whether you're a curious listener, a potential investor, or someone passionate about extending the human health span, this episode promises to offer valuable insights into one of the most exciting frontiers of human progress. So sit back, tune in, and prepare to think alternatively about the future of health and longevity. Let's begin our journey into the world of longevity tech with Petr on Alternatively Speaking.
Petr, thank you so much for coming on to Alternatively Speaking. We are excited to talk to you because you have a really diverse background. You're an entrepreneur, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that. But, you're really here kind of to talk about the money and where you see interesting investments in longevity happening. So before we get there, can you just give us an intro to yourself and about your path to the Longevitytech.fund?
Yeah, sure. So thank you for having me, first of all. And I like actually the way that how longevity is, getting into the awareness, which something we desperately need because it's a life-changing or everything-changing trend, and we need people to know more about that. So I will be happy to share some of my experience from the the investor perspective, but I can also share a lot of other things because that this is actually the only field where you can cross over the business perspective with the personal perspective. What you invest in or do the business, you can actually live it at the same time. So that's the amazing. It's hard to imagine any other field where you can do something similar. Right. So first of all, I'm a lifelong entrepreneur, and I was always in the tech space, serial entrepreneur, startups, lately AI. And then like 5 years ago, I decided to cross my personal passion, in health with my profession. And that was basically based on the realization of the potential of this, what we called longevity. I can talk a lot about the global trends and that stuff. It's extremely interesting. But just to stick with my personal journey, based on the previous experience, I decided to launch a fund, early stage fund, because early stage startups is something I understand. I was living all my life. I have many other startups to fund. So this investor side of the table was not as new for me, but the first fund is something special in the life of any investor because you must prove yourself.
You remember the first check, right?
Yeah. I'm coming from Europe, from Prague, and most of the business is done in the US. But actually, the Prague was the place where because of my network and very, very intense network of people, I decided to launch this Longevitytech.fund. And I was lucky to get 3 great co-founders, with a lot of experience. So we put everything together, and we decided to do this in a, the gradual way, not to like rising for 1 or 2 years and waiting whether it happened or not. So we decided to do several rounds, like in a progressive way. So the first round was really, actually, the first money was coming from us. We obviously put all money into it, and we have made first 2 investments just to demonstrate that we can execute in the field. Then we have done series of 3 bigger and bigger rounds. It was like, always doubling the size, and it was easier and easier because people see the traction, people see that we can deliver, right? And so we end up with more than 40 portfolio companies in our first fund, and now we are basically investing and still rising, the same time in our second fund. So in total, our portfolio is 46 companies, and we expect to reach something like 70 companies. But it's not a game, we are not trying to get as many companies we want. So there is a much more sophisticated strategy behind.
You have a really interesting view of the landscape of this burgeoning industry. And I think before we go any further, there's a misconception that, this field is about, living forever. And a lot of people have different ideas of what longevity actually means. Can you tell us what longevity means to you?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So there is a lot of meanings and interpretations, and even word longevity, means like something in a broader sense. This is why we rather call it healthy longevity, right? And obviously, if you open or maybe change this paradigm that you can actually do something with your aging, you can slow down, or even reverse at least some part of your aging. It opened the paradigm of thinking, right? How about to do this forever, right? And live forever. But that's, I don't think that it's relevant for us, at least at this time, because it's just, first of all, it's just too far in the future. I believe there will be many other, things which will happen, if you imagine AI or AGI in 10, 20, 30 years in the future, the world will probably be completely different. So or thinking what I will do if I will live forever is, I don't think it's really relevant, at least for me. So this is why we are talking about this healthy longevity part, which is actually not extending our life at the end. Nobody wants to live longer in this old and diseased state, but it's about expansion of this healthy and active part of our life, which actually begins somewhere at the age of 25 up to 55, 60. So we are talking about expansion. So the healthy longevity is everything what we can do for slowing down rate of aging during this period of time. So again, it's relevant for young people, and adding like at least 30, 40 more years to this healthy part. So I imagine I can really be in this condition up to 100. Which certainly will reach this period of maybe some singularity or whatever. So I'm perfectly fine with that.
I mean, I'm gonna jump in there. Do you want to talk about singularity? We actually haven't really talked deeply about that on this series yet. And if you want to, we can do that. But also, if you want to keep plowing ahead, we can do that too.
Well, it's actually interesting because before like a professional focus on longevity, I was professionally in AI, and I was actually the one of the influencers in Central Europe who was explaining people 8 years ago what is the AI, and how we can see, or maybe how the potential future may be. And I was explaining this exponential development, right? So that at certain level of development, it just keep accelerating, and then it just become this kind of singularity moment, which is something where we don't see, after that moment. And and that's actually some interesting parallels with longevity, that the awareness about AI at that time was similar, like the awareness of longevity at current time. So I can really see the parallel, because if you see AI now, it's like a hype, right? It's everyone is talking about, and obviously we have real world examples, but it has been clear that it will happen at that time in the past. The same. It's very clear that the longevity, our ability to expand this health span, will happen at maybe sooner, like within 5 to 10 years. So singularity is something I already somehow predicted. Nobody can predict really, but expected to happen around the year 2032, let's say. I remember at that time, there were like pools of interviews, or the from various scientific fields, an estimation of their expected AGI moment, and it was always like never, or maybe in 200 years, or maybe the optimistic part was about like 50 years. And it's getting closer and closer every year. It's like, if you are moving on this curve, people are always, forecasting in linear fashion. And as you are getting on the above this curve, so the linear expectation is obviously faster. So I would say 2032, we will see something really, really different in this field, and we will be facing completely new challenges, like kind of what we can do with this new type of intelligence, how we deal with that in terms of the ethics and that stuff. It's will no longer be just a tool, right? So it'll be like a new being we need to consider in our lives. So that's my take on singularity.
Peter, I'd like to go back and talk about the fund for a second here. Because you had mentioned that you put your own money into it out of the gate. You've done a few rounds here. You're raising another fund. Can you talk about raising the first money and the conversations you were having with investors? And these investors that you're going to, were any of them asking for access to like the early stage tech to try on themselves?
Yeah, good question. And that's exactly what happened. So first of all, part of our proposal was giving them access to latest information, and then we quickly realized that everyone wants something more, and so this is why we like more than 3 years ago we founded one of our portfolio companies by ourselves called Health and Longevity Clinic. And obviously, the business idea is broader. It's not just to serve our investors. Most of our investors or LPs are clients of this clinic. But the role of the clinic is much important. It's basically a bridge. I mean, the translational platform between our portfolio companies and clinical applications. But this is something missing on the in the field. So we actually built that service with multiple purposes. One was serving our investors, obviously serving other clients, other people, and providing our portfolio companies, the way how they can accelerate clinical trials, how they can move this earlier to the market.
The investments that you guys are making, they're into these early stage companies, and so. What are you looking for from a company before you make an investment into them?
Yeah, so our evaluation process evolved over the time, especially due to the fact that we became really well connected in the field, and so we basically know everyone. We are on top of most of these projects or startups in idea stage or in preparation. So we often know about these people, talking with these people like 1 or 2 years before they actually build or found a company, right? So that wasn't the case at the beginning. So at the beginning, we started with like, what we can do, but now we are in a completely different position. So we typically screen several hundreds of companies per year, but we are very selective in terms of science, right? Because our investment strategy is systematic. So we are not just picking companies with like a interesting business potential, but we are systematically filling the spectrum of various technologies and solutions, ranging from diagnostics through therapeutics, therapies, and other enabling technologies. So we have an internal methodology how to do that. So what we are looking for is that the company must fit into one of these segments, and one of the the timelines or time to market scales. So we are looking for short-term, mid-term, and long-term solutions. So we never invest in competitive in terms of the same segment and same time to market. And this strategy actually brings a lot of fruit, because there is a lot of synergistic effects between companies within our portfolio. And the main reason why we do this, this overall strategy, is that we see that the need on an individual level, like the human level, is comprehensive. There is not going to be a company like the winner with this magic pill or magic therapy. So there will always be a combination of various things available for individuals. So this is where we see the winning strategy to have a comprehensive set of solutions.
So is there a typical size of investment that or like, how much are you putting into each of these individual areas that you were just describing? Like, what are the size of the investments? 250,000, 50,000?
Yeah. Well, it's ranging from 100 to 600 based on various dependencies. Obviously, if the company is like pre-seed, the ticket is rather smaller. If the company is seed or Series A, we do even more. And the second fund is expected to be 50 million in size, so we may be going up in the ticket size later when we will see that we can close that at that level. But the principle is basically the same. Especially in pre-seed stages, we can do tranches. So some projects are committed over some amount, and tranches are released based on results over the period of, for example, one year or 1.5 years. So it varies. So we are very proactive when we invest. So I don't mean like we are not activistic, right? So the founders still their responsibility, but we are trying to be as much helpful as we can. But that's obviously mostly relevant for this pre-seed and seed stage. We cannot help as much, Series A and similar companies.
Are you able? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Phil.
I was just going to say, on the second fund that you're raising the money for, you said that that's going to go towards those areas that you were investing in as well for the first fund, or is this going to be the second fund separately investing in a specific area?
No, it's the same area and same strategy, except maybe a bigger ticket size, at the next phase. So that's the only difference, because we found that our investment strategy is quite good. Having like 40 companies in portfolio, and if you even see the last year, like a big crisis on the VC market, we have seen just one fail in our portfolio, right? So that doesn't mean that the companies are not having problems, or they are doing everything they can do, like receiving grants or even sometimes postponing some expenses or research. But still, I would say the strategy is successful, And we haven't done any significant exits yet because the exit period of the first fund is beginning basically next year. So we still need to see the final ROI, but the implied valuation ROI is quite good.
So, sorry, Ann, I'm taking this over. If somebody is interested in putting money to work with you, what's the minimum ticket that they have to, the minimum check that they have to write? How do they get that money to you?
Yeah,
because we do have a number of investors that listen to this podcast.
Sure, absolutely. We are still open with the second fund. It's a standard to VC structure, the level VC structure. Minimum ticket is $250K. But if there is anyone with like a slightly lower appetite, we have some like alternative solutions, some like other vehicles. Obviously, if there is someone with like a bigger appetite, we are happy to offer some co-investment opportunities or maybe introduce to some of our companies. There is still not everyone, but most of these companies are still raising. So there's a plenty of opportunity. And we have a quite good knowledge, about many of these companies. Sometimes even companies we didn't invest in, but we know them because there are some other friendly co-investors. That's actually nice in this industry in the moment because the field is super cooperative. So we are not competing with other investors. We are complementing each other. So we are very often having like sessions where we are sharing due diligence and some ideas and opinions about companies. And we like to co-invest because you actually multiply this effect of support and help because mostly always someone has the helping hand with a specific situation.
Is it okay if I go now, Phil?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, I think it's interesting that the companies in your portfolio aren't competitive, and I know that you love all of your children equally, but are you able to give like 2 or 3 examples of the companies that you're investing in that are doing some of this important work?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, some companies I like very well, but we don't have as much intensive interaction because they are really good. And I just monitor them, and obviously we have some reporting and that stuff. Some companies, especially in this very early stage, they need this helping hand. So I'm more involved. I'm sitting on 5, 6 boards. So we have a frequent interaction. So this is where I see much more details, and I like them. So that's great. For just providing some examples. Actually, the first company we invested in is from the UK. The company AgeCurve. This is where the company is focused on real breakthrough type of diagnostics. It's in the field of DNA or so-called somatic mutations. And they're coming really with like a breakthrough insights. It's a cutting-edge science, so nobody knows about that, and it turns out to be super useful for predicting some issues or for tissue transplants or anything related to DNA damage accumulated over the time. All cells divide through how we age. So the company AgeCurve is one of the example I like much, and there are others. Maybe just to give you the example of a company which doesn't seem to be a longevity on a first look, but the company Animal Biosciences, they develop a way, a special the biotech capable to kill any viruses or bacteria or fungi. And why this is important? Because they call it synthetic immune system, and especially in the time of maybe some outbreaks, or for example, they could kill every COVID virus, like within the broad range with the single application. So this company is going to be very important for our longevity because our bodies are really damaged by exceptional or even standard infections, or for example by fungi. There is a lot of fungi which are living inside us, and it's very damaging, and we just don't know, right? So this is an interesting example of the breakthrough technology which can save a lot of lives, not just prolonging longevity. Like for example, they found a solution for Ebola, right? So the most efficient solution for Ebola.
Well, and I think it's interesting. We're going to be talking to a vaccine company also, how, this aspect of living a longer, healthier life, till the end, and that, vaccines and vaccine science really plays a big part in that. So if you're not dying of Ebola or COVID, you are able to live a longer, healthier life. So I think that is fascinating. And it is so interesting to see how a lot of the other disciplines in the biotech, tech, medical space do dovetail with longevity and that, quest to live a longer, healthier life. I wanted to see, you mentioned AI and, your background in AI. And in terms of investments, are you seeing companies like Microsoft and Alphabet, making any really sizable investments in the longevity standpoint? I mean, there's, Microsoft is like on a tear now, with the promise of AI. Is that at all trickling down to this particular space, or are we too early?
Yeah. So, these companies, they have like bunch of different strategies how to do this. So their primary focus is to invest in companies which can support the primary business. This is mainly what they can do. But sometimes they kind of derived more independent VC arms. And, we know that like from the past, one of the most active is, for example, Intel Capital. And they regularly invest. We have a co-investment in company Cyfox. It's the diagnostic company. So there's one example. I know that there is I don't remember which one, but there is one co-investment with Microsoft. We see ARM and maybe even Google. So but that's still the beginning. So they don't have like a primary focus this direction, except Google. I mean, Alphabet had done like a huge investment in the past, the company Calico, but nobody actually knows what's happening there because they are so secretive about that. But I think that it's all coming, right? So we will see like an inflow of investors and money, especially going up to larger institutional investors within the next 2 or 3 years, because that's imminent, that this exponential turn is coming. We expect that around the year 26. So the first turn will be especially focused on or based on the investor interest, and then we will see the consumer hype, maybe 2 years later. So, and everyone is seeking the consumer hype because this is where the prices are highest, and they can exit companies at the right time. So this definitely, I expect that.
So with longevity, I guess it obviously falls under the biotech, pharma, healthcare vertical there. So there have been a number of different boom cycles in biotech, like with gene editing, peptides, et cetera. Are we there right now with longevity? Are we seeing that boom cycle right now?
Yeah. There's a difference between biotech and longevity. Actually, there are many differences, right? So the traditional biotech is mostly driven by traditional, big pharma or drug approval pathways, which are pretty clear in terms of what's your development cycles, what you need to do, and everyone is basically focused on some return of investment on a sub-licensing or acquisition by, for example, big pharma based on some specific drugs or treatment. And the way how this is done is basically prioritizing very narrow indications, disease or rare disease or orphan indications and that stuff. So, and that this world is pretty conservative. And on the longevity side, it's quite different because first of all, aging is not a disease, right? So it cannot be, you cannot approve anything by FDA for disease. So this is first reason why it's not as tangible from the perspective of these traditional biotech or biopharma companies or investors. Second, the major difference is that it is actually our criterion where why we invest is that the solution must solve some fundamental aging issue, right? Like the life cycle of senescent cells, or mitochondrial health, or some DNA damage, which eventually lead to like a multiple or full spread of various diseases. So meaning that we can actually, even targeting this fundamental problem of aging, we can find many various, we can pick some like a disease we call proxy disease, and we can start building, or the company we invest in, they can start building the treatment for that disease, but while still working on aging itself. So that's how we see, or what we require from these companies, because if this company just focus everything on that single disease, it get distracted from this aging, development, and they will end up with some like a specific drug, and they maybe make some business with big pharma, but it's basically lost from the perspective of longevity or aging. So, having said that, it's like a long explanation. These cycles are different than in biotech. And the other difference is that longevity is much broader umbrella. It's not just treatments. I mentioned diagnostics, I mentioned enabling platforms or technologies, which includes AI, like in silico development of drugs, or commercialization platforms, right? Maybe the overall longevity economy is basically everything which can be triggered by this new wave of healthy people coming into the later age, still being super active, actually even rich. So it's like a completely new economy. If you imagine that all productive life currently is like something between 25 or up to, let's say, 55 or 60 of our age, and we are going to double that, so all of these people will stay active and will stay doing what they do right now. They can, do the business, they can be entrepreneurs, or they can just travel. They will be all spending and trying to find a new way of living. They can repeat the education cycle. They can find completely new careers, but they can even have a new families because the reproduction ability will come somehow possibly to renovate. So this actually creates this completely new so-called longevity economy in the future. It's not a far future because it's actually happening. We already see these people coming into later age and still being super healthy and active.
Do you think, you mentioned this kind of broader economy, which is really interesting because, if people are going to live longer, they're going to need the resources to do that. Are there any considerations that you're hearing about as it relates to mental health care and longevity? As we're thinking about sustaining this quality of life and overall happiness, is there anything that you're seeing that either concerns you, or is this something that's like not really being addressed because we're just working on the first part?
Sure. Well, oral health in terms of the biology is kind of a precondition, but actually we are a complex system, right? So everything plays its role, and you cannot, for example, you cannot improve your health without really improving the mental and even your willingness to live, like your purpose for the life. And we know that there is a kind of a crisis of purpose because people don't see, the future as much because of this, accelerating rate of changes and things happening. So that is something against the longevity. So people need to want to live longer and healthy and be active. So we definitely consider, the mental health and social interactions and basically everything in our lives as a part of the longevity. And but it's like a self-enforcement enforcement circle, because if you find and if you trust that you can improve your health, you may start predicting your life after 55 or 60. So you may not need to stay conservative and looking for like a pension somewhere silent, which actually triggers some other mechanisms of you much more caring about the future, and not just your future, but about the future of everyone else. That's actually part of our crisis, that people, especially people, kind of ruling the world, they are mostly older people, and they don't care about, the future in 30, 20 years, because, well, that's not what concerns them, right? So if we manage to give them the possibility to live longer, still in health, they maybe start caring about that future. So again, the mental health and purpose of our lives, all of that is important and integral part of this longevity approach.
So Peter, during our interviews with other leaders in this field, we've had some brief discussions around CRISPR technology, and its gene editing technology. What are your thoughts on CRISPR, and where do you see its place in the future of longevity? Basically, how investable is CRISPR now?
Right. CRISPR is kind of gene editing, that's kind of a hardcore, intervention in our bodies, and I don't think that it can be soon useful for anything else than really focus on that rare problems or disease or real genetic problems or troubles where we can clearly see that this part of our genes or the genes of children are damaged or modified in a way they will not survive. So this is something which is already happening and will be happening more and more. But in terms of longevity, things are actually not. That's much more complicated, right? Because there is an interplay of everything with everything. So you cannot say, for example, there is no single longevity gene, right? Or the single gene which you can say, okay, if we modify this way, you will live longer. Now, there are some gene areas or group of genes which they seems to be correlated. And we have some first thoughts. For example, there is a gene called CERTUN6 responsible for gene repair, are very important. And there is a variation of that gene found in centenarians, right? In these long-living people who are actually healthy for over 100. And so that's maybe first clue, something we may try to change. But there are other ways how we can help with that today already. So this is the example of one of our companies called Genflow Biosciences. They actually they have a license, to provide this centenarian variant of CERTUN6, but not in a form of gene editing, but in a form of gene therapy. The gene therapy is something that you put that additional gene copies in your cells without modifying the DNA itself. So you may need to repeat that after some time, but it's completely safe because you are not modifying your especially your germline cells. So that's a way much more relevant for longevity than CRISPR, at least I would say for the following 5 years. And I can give you more examples of gene therapies which are underway.
Yeah, I mean, if you'd like to, we're certainly open to that. I think, certainly as our audience, is looking at certain sectors within like this longevity, marketplace, talking about things like gene editing, I think is, definitely one of the sectors that I would imagine would be something worth, looking at.
Yeah. So most of these interventions are based on the realization that there is a lack of something, some molecule or some protein, or there is an abundance of some wrong or bad folded protein or some other things. So there are ways how you can kind of reprogram your cells to deal with that, to make more these proteins, or probably to consume, like the company Animal Biosciences. They develop a way how you can reprogram your macrophages to eat your cholesterol plaques. They do this, in a way, but just in a small extent. So they cannot deal with like typically large cholesterol plaques at later age. But they can do this. They can help them they can basically train them to do it in a very efficient way, so they can eat more than 50% of your cholesterol plaques. So that's amazing.
It's both terrifying and so cool at the same time.
Yeah, imagine that the cardiovascular problem or heart problem is basically the biggest killing factor in our world. So most people die from cardiovascular issues. So with this therapy, it's not just the longevity itself; it's really life-saving therapy. And we have various others, like the gene therapy for extending your telomere length. There is other gene therapy focused on more copies of so-called Cloto gene, which has various effects, obviously very, very positive effects to your health.
So, we have a lot of, like we said, kind of investors who are listening, and, people who are interested in getting into the space. What advice do you have for retail investors looking to participate? And then if there are companies listening that are interested in pitching you or interested in getting in touch with you on a fundraising, in a fundraising capacity, how do they do that?
Sure. So let me start with the second one.
Yeah, I threw two questions at you. Sorry.
Companies can easily fill simple form on our website. So we have an evaluation process. We have a scientific team. So after first screening, there is a meeting where we can listen to the company. We ask them questions, and then so we are trying to be like very efficient, right? So because that's one learning from being on the both side, entrepreneur investor side, it's the time entrepreneur dedicate to talking with investors is extremely expensive. So because there's obviously just a fraction of investor who will end up finally investing in you. And this is damaging. So we want to save time of entrepreneurs, just be very efficient. And for prospective investors, just a general advice, I would say, I would not invest in things which seems to be attractive from the first point of view. Like, there is a huge hype in supplements. And there is a huge kind of I would not say hype, but activity in terms of various e-commerce services, obviously mostly based on the app, some test kits, send it to home, and maybe with expectation of sending some supplements at the end. we see these companies and ideas popping every week. So that's definitely, this is a clear sign of, overhyped expectations, because in reality, it's really hard, to keep your customers, consumers growing on that model, because the problem is much more complex. So I would, provide a warning that what seems to be like a no-brainer when you first start thinking about the field is mostly not right. So you need to spend much more time knowing how the market looks like and what will be the market dynamics in the future.
So if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah. So people are mostly driven by their own understanding and feeling. So they find something, they like it, they say, okay, I would buy it, right? So meaning that there will be much more people who would buy it too, but they don't consider there is thousands of similar people actually working on the same idea at the same time. So it's super hard to do this on the consumer market, especially in this stage of the development. It's like, if I come back to AI, there was in this slow pace of development, it was really hard to start anything consumer, and because there was not enough understanding and traction from that consumer point of view, and then it quickly changed to the point where you have these things like ChatGPT and others, which are mostly for free, and it just killed like mostly everyone providing something similar based on some like several years of development, right? Mm-hmm. So, and this will happen, like this simple interventions will be basically for free, or the margins will be super low, and only like major manufacturers can keep the pace with the market needs.
Our last question to you, in terms of longevity for yourself, can you talk about any practices that you're currently doing that will help you not only increase your lifespan, but also your health span?
So it's actually a typical question I'm asked for. And first of all, I'm not like a super typical example of that, because having this health and longevity clinic, where we have a clinic in Europe and the second one in Florida, I am a kind of a guinea pig, because I need to see how these things works, right?
So you have access.
I have access to really cutting edge diagnostics and interventions, which actually showing that there is a great possibility what you can do, right? Because my latest results measured by so-called epigenetic aging or DNA methylation shown that my epigenetic age is 16 years lower than my chronological. I'm 50.
Wow.
Chronological, and my epigenetic clocks are showing 39, which obviously there are like many providers of epigenetic clocks. Some of them are like cheap and it's like fluctuating. So we may say, okay, that's just the exception. But I have a series of measurements, and we are using True Diagnostic, which is maybe one of the most sophisticated, with many other parameters, and obviously I have like a bunch of other diagnostics showing the similar results. So this is exactly showing that if you do this right in a smart way, I would say, because I'm not a biohacker, I'm not a like Brian Johnson, not doing
there's lots of stuff that he's doing. Mm-hmm.
I do regular job. I'm investing. I'm raising. I'm managing a couple of companies. So I need to be smart in these interventions. So if I can say what are the basic rules, it's actually simple. At the first part, you should not do anything like a bet, right? And you can imagine what is bad, drinking, smoking, and that stuff, including dangerous activities, right? Because right? And in terms of what is good for you, it's getting much more complicated because everyone is different. This is exactly what we see from our, the experience. We have like up to 500 clients in health and longevity clinic, and we can actually see these results on multiple people. We can see we can achieve 5 to 10 years kind of rejuvenation of epigenetic age within 1 year of program, but there is no common. I mean, it's always very individual what these people should do, because first of all, you need to know what's your predisposition based on genetics, what's your status based on various other diagnostics, including like extensive blood biomarkers. You need to set your health baseline, which is, everyone got some problems like deficiencies of that or something else. Even people are supplementing, but it's not efficient because you actually don't know what you should supplement, even in which form, right? So, for example, some people need special form of B12 or as far as other extensive doses because of their genetic predisposition. And then you need to address potential issues. So do some screening for cancer biomarkers or some other problems. And this is all called setting the baseline of your health. And this will mostly, if your epigenetic age is like older than your chronological, meaning that there is some accumulation of problems, you can basically reach the same level as your chronological age, or you can get even a little bit better. But that's just the first stage, right? Then there is a second stage where you start using some more advanced supplementation, therapeutic doses, some things like many people know, for example, from David Sinclair, that stuff. And I mean, it works, right? We see, the elevated NAD levels even in old age, and it all comes into play with everything else. Your diet, your exercise, your sleeping patterns, all of that is individual. That if you ask if you should be vegan or not, I cannot answer you because it depends, right? It depends on multiple factors, including your genetics.
Right.
So advanced supplementations, and then we can go further up. So then there are some drugs you can use. They are obviously not drugs approved for aging, but for example, maybe metformin, but it's it's not a longevity drug itself. It's more like a compensatory drug for many other therapies. Yeah. But there is a rapamycin. It seems to be pretty efficient, but in a specific like a dosing protocol, and mostly in combination with some lifestyle changes and supplementation, saying that you need to do this in a different way in different days, right? Following some specific pattern. It's not like getting the same stuff every day and hoping that it will somehow works, because it's like pushing the brake and gas pedals in the car in the same time, right? So that's a small way how to do that, and then we can introduce. And that's basically the beginning of the time of this link to our portfolio companies, advanced therapies. For example, in Florida, we have therapeutic plasma exchange, where you can exchange your plasma content with the specific fluid, with albumin, and it could help with various issues, but also it's simply you are getting rid of bad stuff, if I can say it simply. And following that, we are obviously looking forward to these gene therapies, right? So we hope to start these clinical trials this year already. So you will be receiving the good stuff, right? Which will improve your for example, DNA or mitochondria function or telomeres or everything. So all of that together in this, we call it longevity roadmap, will or can give you, I strongly believe, like additional 20 years, within the next several or few years.
I love it. Thank you so much, Peter. We really appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me.